you know, so that's the reward, right? At the end of the tunnel of a decent bulk, you might put some body fat on, you know, we've all been there. The light at the end of it, that's when you start to realize, oh shit, I am a little bigger. I have put some size on. When I cut down, I'm gonna be freakier than I've ever looked because I put in some mass gaining size over a period of time and delayed the gratification of really getting to enjoy that mass until later, you know. And those who can't stand that, right? They love being lean. They just don't want to, like, for the sake of getting bigger, the cost of having to, you know, get a more normal, like 14, 12-ish% body fat. I'm talking about the guys who love hanging out at like 8, like they're trying to be diced on the regular. Of course, you know, I'm not going to say anything is wrong. You know, do what you want to do. But for me, from the perspective of someone who's done a considerable number of bulks and actually had them work and, you know, been able to diet out of them successfully, I feel like I get the best of both worlds, because I get heavy ass lifts when I'm bulked and wild, just grainy, you know, poses at the end, plus just feeling like cool and lean when I'm cut up, you know. So that's my perspective, right? It's like if somebody asks you your favorite food, that's not even a good question, you know, because there's so many different kinds of food to enjoy. To pick one is almost closed-minded, right? So I'm not going to limit myself just to a bulk or just to a cut, right? I want to experience the entire facet of what lifting, you know, in the pursuit of size has to offer. But I think nothing else to discuss. Let's get out of here. When I'm hyping up the cardio, do not be confused. You know, I'm not getting in the car or jumping into the basement or anything just because I'm like, holy crap, all right, I'm gonna bring it here. I'm gonna sit in the seat of the bike and I'm gonna pedal. You know, not exactly. It doesn't demand that much actual, like, in the moment intensity. But you know, one thing that I think about it is it's more so you've just got to get to a state of being where it's not a chore. It's just something you do, you know. And if someone who is naturally a complainer, or maybe not naturally, but just has very complaining tendencies, you know, every time they come to the gym, it's not, oh man, it's busy in here. It's, oh God, everybody's on my stuff. You know, it's not like, oh shit, there's a lot of energy in here today. It's, oh, it's just, I mean, I've seen guys back when I was in college, every time I'd see this dude, man, what are you in today? Pretty strong guy. Oh, and legs, I hate myself. God, this sucks. And I guess it depends on the guy. If for whatever reason that's like your way of, or that's somebody's way of, like, yeah, that's just how I deal with it. I talk about how much I don't like it. It makes me feel comfortable. It's kind of like a self-depreciation kind of, I don't know. But for me, I don't get it. And I definitely don't like it. I mean, I don't want to hear that. You know, I'm coming in excited to hit chest or to hit something, and then I got to hear somebody whining about how they drove all the way there, but they don't want to be there. It's like, obviously you at least want to be there a little bit, or else you wouldn't have even shown up, you know. So that's yeah. But the guys who are really dogging it in a good way, and you know, they just show up and they hit their stuff. You know, it's not for them to actually bring it to, what would you call it? Would we call it like a 90% threshold of effort? Just enough where they're getting the job done. You know, you can have somebody where they're slacking off, you can tell they're not really bringing it, and then you have somebody where they're really killing it. And the guys who can really bring it the most often are the ones where they don't, like, getting a workout in isn't a big deal. You know, it's not this high stakes thing for them. It's just what they do, you know, because they've kind of conditioned themselves to the point where just regular, or not even regular, but like a good workout, like really pushing it, I'm talking like just, that's what they do, you know, and that's their own expectation from themselves. Anything short of that would be like, what am I doing? You know, like it's, you know how you like to fold your shirts, you're gonna fold them the same way you do. You know, if anybody was like just balled it up and threw it in your closet, you'd say, what the hell is this? This sucks. You know, so kind of a silly analogy, but it's definitely a practice makes perfect kind of thing. Because the more you work out or do anything, just the easier it's going to be to keep doing it, I feel. You know, at least as long as you've got a little bit of excitement and interest in the topic. But yeah, breakfast this morning, getting back to the regular routine. 2 cans of tuna, 60 grams of protein or so, mixed with what did I mix it with? Yeah, sugar-free barbecue sauce. That is a classic combo, just to kind of up the enjoyment of any plain protein. Any sort of sugar-free sauce of your choosing. That's I mean, that's where the diet gets the most varied over the course of these next few months, because the actual base foods, they're not going to change much. Egg whites, ground beef, canned tuna, canned chicken. That's really it. I'll break out some ground turkey later, like once I really need to make sure that all my proteins are like basically as lean as I can get them. And it's kind of tricky to get like super dry beef. You know, I mean, it'll you can get like decently lean, but it's not like, it's nothing like turkey, right? If you've got ground turkey cooked plain in the fridge, once it's cooled down, let's just say there's no richness to be had there. When at least with some ground beef, you know, you can still tell it's like, yeah, there's a little something going on. But that's I won't really have to worry about that for I mean, basically just months. You know, because right now I'm dieting on easy mode. Coming off of this bulk, all I have to do is chill out of my food intake. And it's more so just taking my foot off the gas of now, you know, not having to basically just force food down. Not force, but like, you know, really make it a priority to chow, because it's not the goal. My goal is to stay under whatever calorie limit I've got and try my best not to overshoot it like a total fool, and then, you know, basically have an unnecessary cheat day. There are necessary cheat days, which I'll get into over the coming weeks, but for the most part, unnecessary. For the most part, a lot of cheat days are motivated purely by, oh man, I'm hungry. Much less cheat days are motivated by, I think I need a higher calorie day just to fill back up. I've been on my shit for 8 weeks straight. Like, I think it'll be good to have one refeed just to really kind of, you know, make sure I keep my metabolism up. Like most, and if people are thinking that, sometimes they're lying to themselves, just trying to convince themselves that, yeah, you know, I heard people do cheat days when they're dieting. I heard a refeed is actually a good idea. Like, as though you need a refeed one weekend, you know, not something I want to see. All right, you know what's better? You want to know what's better than getting in a lift with your boys, meeting some new characters, making some new connections with guys on the exact same wavelength as you, who are seriously into the same things that you're about? Well, I can tell you, doing it again after a period of time and being better than you were the first time, right? And just as a group, you can tell. Like, I've gotten to see guys, you know, year after year and say, holy crap, this guy is way bigger than I remember. Or this guy is, holy crap, this guy got cut, you know, sort of things along those lines. And it's, you know, for me, like, every time I get to go to any kind of expo, any kind of gathering, any kind of whatever, and get to see dudes, I mean, for one, who I've only ever seen on my phone before, and I'm like, holy crap, look at this freaking guy. It's just, oh, you know, it's just cool to know that the progress you're making, and not even that it means something, because it would mean something regardless, but it's more so just like, oh, I don't know, I can't even describe it, right? It's like you haven't seen your buddy for a year or two or whatever, and you're both wilder at whatever you've been into than you were last time, to the point where you don't have to talk about it. It's even unspokenly known. You know what I'm saying? So for any of you guys who are just now, I mean, yeah, it's about school time. So any of you youngins, and I don't want to say youngins by that much of a margin, but I mean, I'm sure if you're my age-ish, older, younger, whatever, you probably feel like you're a completely different guy at the end of college versus the beginning. You know, it's I'd say that's a pretty solid coming of age sort of thing compared to high school too, right? Like you as a freshman versus you as a senior. Who the hell was that guy? You know. But if you're about to embark, let's say you're one of those cross country kind of guys. I went to school in state, so I wasn't too far. It's still a couple-hour drive, you know. But if you're totally uprooting yourself and you're saying, I'm gonna be a whole new guy, man. I'm leaving Louisiana. I'm going to NYU. I'm going to I'm going to Stanford. I'm going to wherever, right? I'm hauling off, and you're gonna whatever. You know what I'm saying? But if you're gonna be gone for a while, that's kind of a good time to start to bring it. You know, nobody around there knows what you can or can't do, or will stick to, or are capable of. So it's kind of a good time for some self-investment. You know, like it might not seem like a lot. Just imagine. I mean, what's an hour a day? I'm sure you play in your phone for hours a day, and I'm not like calling you out. I do the same shit. You know, so to direct one of those towards anything, doesn't have to be working out, but obviously I'm going to be talking about working out. You know, if you can just put in one of those hours into stopping at the rec center, at a local gym, at a whatever. I mean, we all know, well, I guess for us, we're the guys who do work out, but everyone knows somebody who's in the gym. And if I knew, if one of my buddies who I hadn't talked to for a while, or still talk to but aren't really into working out, if they told me that they wanted to come lift, I'd say, yeah, let's go hit it. Right? Get a PFIT membership. Let's go hang out over there, bust out some anything, you know. So it's the barrier to entry is very low, but the reward is very high, you know. And it might, I get it. For the uninitiated, they don't really understand what we know about like just lifting, right? It's not just looking a certain way. It's just this like physical, like exertion that you can't emulate with anything else. I mean, I guess if you're really into your sport, right? Let's say you're a die-hard wrestler or something along those lines, then that's a little bit different, you know. So if you've got a physical endeavor that you're into, let's say you're a BJJ kind of guy, you know, whatever, that's a little different, right? That is kind of on a pretty similar wavelength, just as a different kind of physical training. But if you're just kind of doing tasks that are a little bit more, maybe not mundane, but just less physically demanding, then I think you need to add a little bit of something. You know, it doesn't have to be trying to squat like Tom Platz, or hitting a crazy high volume chest day like going back and finding a Jay Cutler tape or an Arnold workout or anything along those lines. But to not work out, you're giving yourself a disservice, you know. And it's kind of something where you don't know until you do it, and you start to kind of feel that just, I don't even know how to describe it, right? And satisfaction's not the right word, just kind of contentness of having brought it. You're really sweating, and you did it because you want to. You know, if somebody told me that I gotta unload a semi, that was I never brought that up before. When I was working at Lowe's one semester, and my hours were rough because I wanted to basically I had class in more like the evening, like noon to 5. That was kind of my class window for the week. So what I was doing at the time was I was doing the morning shift at Lowe's. So I was rocking like a 5 a.m. to 10, and then on the weekends I would do kind of longer ones. But yeah, that was a crazy routine. Let me just start it from the beginning. I'd get up for cardio like 3:30. Actually, no, more like straight up 3. This was only one semester. I did not do this for that long. But like 3 o'clock wake up, cardio, shower off, get my get my flannel and jeans on, because this was kind of the fall sort of time, and then get ready to drive up a couple miles to Lowe's. I was in the garden department, Right? If you needed help where a lawnmower was, or like a weed whacker, or a certain kind of whatever, that was me running around and making sure all the shelves were stocked. But sometimes they'd throw us in the back, or because they needed because it was a totally separate position to unload deliveries and like package them. We'd have like 8 pallets where it's like, okay, this is going to hardware or whatever. And they always asked me to go back there, probably just because I was kind of big and they wanted me to lift shit. I should have said no. But if somebody told me to do that and just move and like be sweaty, just moving a bunch of stuff around, it would be very fun, you know, because I don't want to do it. But you take basically the same, if not more effort, and you know, it's me coming in to do a chest day or an arm day, where I'm literally doing more physical work, but because I want to do it, it doesn't feel like a chore at all. It's an activity, you know? So I was getting into this a couple days ago, where you can basically cheat the difficulty of any given task by kind of just your mental perception around it. You know, if you're somebody who just has like this serious, legitimate itch to get better at something, and it could be anything, it doesn't really matter what it is, then for you to practice it and get better at it because you're interested and you're invested and like you want to do it. You don't want to do it because like it's gonna show somebody, like you just on a base level, you and your heart, actually not even your heart, just more your mind, you're like, I'm going to hit legs. I'm gonna go crazy. If I don't take all my sets to like solid intensity, then that's just not even what I'm there for. Like that's not even a question. Then that guy's he's gonna do it, right? He's gonna go harder, you know? So it's I don't know if I'd even call it a question of desire per se, because everybody wants it, right? If you could flip a switch and let's say your mental image of a really cool version of how you want to look physically, whether it's like, you know, a cut up kind of more like lean, mean, sort of like 180, just kind of, you know, like athletic kind of build, if that's your deal, or if you want to be a bit beefier, more like a 230 or whatever, you know, if you can immediately flip a switch or press a button and just jump to that instant, like your most badass build that you can imagine, right? Or not even like something like that, but just being in good shape, everybody would do it. You know, put them in a closed room, nobody's watching, everyone would do it. But the fact that we live in reality, this isn't a freaking fairy tale world, and to make something like that happen is going to take time, take effort, take patience, then that's the real tricky part. So, you know, to say it's like, oh, you don't really want it, I don't think that's exactly right. I think everybody wants it, you know? But it's more so, can you handle the uncomfortability that it takes to get there? You know? And you got 2 options when it comes to that, right? You can either really toughen yourself up and be the guy who can just eat like imagine someone who can do a full 6-month like chicken, rice, broccoli, no seasonings, no nothing, everything absolutely perfect, like no treats, no cheating, no anything. And the guy might have a ton of cravings, but he's telling himself, oh, I don't care, I can handle this. And then he handles it. Like he seriously does it. There's no stopping him. You know, cardio, 2 hours, just whatever. Well, that works. But there's also the component of, well, why does this have to be something that's, hard? Like, why do I have to make this extra hard on myself? You know? So that's where, for me, dieting-wise, when I do cardio, I do the cardio that I like the most. I eat foods that make me feel more full, and I can, manage my macros, and I can kind of add in, maybe I'll have a lighter meals throughout the day so I can have more of a cheat meal at night, things like that. But you need a little bit of both, I feel, right? Because if you can't thug it out when it gets hard, well, then you're never going to get anywhere. I think we can all agree with that. But also, if you give yourself a routine that's too strict to handle, no, actually that's the same thing. If you give yourself a routine that's too strict to handle, you're never going to do it if you can't actually thug it out. But if you expect everything to be easy, so like there's this secret of like if you eat 3 egg whites and apple cider vinegar that you're suddenly just going to get leaner than you've ever been, and it'll just be completely effortless, well, then that's not going to work either. So it's a combination of bringing serious effort forward internally, but also morphing your routine around something that you can resonate with and enjoy. If somebody gave me a workout routine and I didn't want to hear it, then I'm probably not going to have that much fun doing it, because in my mind, I think I just want to do what I do. Now, if I asked someone for a routine and I really trusted what they knew and had to say, and I wanted to try their perspective, that's different. But that's it's something where I like the personalness of working out, because it's just you, right? It's they're obviously real kind of high level competitive guys, or guys who just want someone to deal with the planning for them. They're gonna have coaches, they're gonna have teams around them where they really help figure everything out, and they get to take some of the pressure off, and he doesn't have to worry about it. But I like that it's an individual thing. I like that it's something that I kind of get to learn for myself, because then, it's kind of twofold. For one, I think I've got a little bit of a disagreeableness where I'm like, this is my thing, I want to do it, I don't want anybody messing with it, like, this is for me. But also along the lines of I want to work for something that I get to show off because I did it. And no, it wasn't anybody else who did it, right? Nobody else did my cardio. That was all me, right? So that's kind of where my headspace is at, I feel. But it's just a balancing act of still being able to toughen it up, but also making sure that you pick a smooth path for you. Because if you're the last thing you want to do is burn yourself out. You want to become the guy who doesn't get burnt out, because he toughens up over time. But you wouldn't give a beginner dude a Tom Platz workout. He's never worked out before. You got to start with more basic stuff, right? And work your way up. And from as far as I know, you're basically running off of your muscle glycogen, your blood sugar first, before you start using any other forms of energy to convert into ATP and make your muscles fire and everything else like that. All that's to say is, when you're bulked and full of carbs, you're strong and you got some more muscular endurance. And honestly, that muscular endurance part is kind of what really gets me, because it's not like I just halved my strength. That set of squats first, probably a little bit heavier than necessary for the goal of just dieting and maintaining my size. I gotta think I was gonna hurt myself, but I probably didn't have to do 5. But the weight itself didn't feel crazy, but it definitely made its way into a fatiguing range rather freaking quickly. So part of me might think, okay, well, if my muscular endurance is a little bit compromised when I'm not eating a crazy amount of food, then should I try to up the intensity and reduce the volume of the lifts, or lower the intensity and maybe just do the same volume, or potentially even a few more lighter squeezing sets? So just kind of a back and forth. But when I'm dieting down, honestly, my main concern is just having good lifts, because there's not really much room for optimization in terms of new growth. You know what I'm saying? You're either building new muscle, holding on to the muscle you've already built, or losing muscle. So assuming you work out consistently, you're probably not going to lose any muscle, even if you're in a steep deficit. At least not like an insane amount. You really have to be trying. And maintaining is much easier than gaining, So it's not really a hyping sort of thought for me when I'm dieting down, because, on a lift by lift basis, the pressure is a little bit off, like the difficulty from bulking now to dieting down and getting leaner is no longer on like the lift itself. I really want to make sure my lifts when I'm bulking up are like as primo as I can get them, just so they induce the most growth that I can, kind of stimulate. And then I go home and, eat a crap ton of food to be able to facilitate that growth. But dieting down, The hard part isn't the training. I mean, it'll get a little harder as I get leaner and you get a little bit lower energy over time. But right now, the hard part is just limiting calories. You know, that's where the difficulty lies. And as long as you're getting good lifts and you still bring it, I think you're cool. But it's always this gray area because, you know, I don't need to try to do the craziest sets I've ever done in my life when I'm dieting. And like, nobody really does. But you don't slack either, right? You're still bringing it. So you can't write things off as really black or white or all the way this and all the way this. There usually is a sweet spot middle ground, you know. But I'm definitely going to get excited the leaner I get, because I might even bust out some tank top lifts this diet, at least when I get a bit leaner. For now, at least, I don't mind being covered up, because honestly, it makes it a little more abrupt when I start getting more and more defined. Because if I'm looking at myself for the entire workout, like let's say I had a real thin stringer cutoff as I'm doing chest, in every rep I'm like, I mean, if I was doing like either like a shirtless or a like a real thin stringer type chest day, I can almost guarantee in between every set I'd probably do at least like a little bit of a flex in the mirror just so I can see how I'm looking, just because I'm, you know, prone to doing that as a lifter, you know. So I try to just not even give myself the distraction of trying to even worry about how I look during the lift, because I've got the lift to do, you know. That's taking priority, right? And that's a good headspace for me. And then it makes me more excited about the you know, finishing the workout, because then it's not just, oh, I'm done with this workout, I can get in the car and chill. It's all right, I'm done with this workout, let's see how good the pump that resulted was. So it's kind of this extra motivator beyond just having a good workout anyway for me, because it's like, okay, I really got to step it up for these next couple sets to make sure I'm fully pumped at the end, you know. So it's just kind of this extra force that, you know, gets me going and makes me excited. And some people, I mean, maybe you don't really care about a pose down. I couldn't imagine why, but I'm sure there's a lot of people where they don't even think about like finishing a chest day and then posing in the mirror, like taking a progress photo or anything. They just want to do it and get out of there. And to that I say, go for it. It's not my pump, right? But no, that was a good one. And then I think tomorrow is almost certainly a rest day. I might, I said a while ago, I still remember this, I said if I ever post a video that doesn't have a workout, then I don't know what I said. I must have said something like, you know, call me a total punk, or call me a poser, or something like that. But on a rest day, apart from the cardio, there is a need for just kind of chilling sometimes. You know, you don't want to overdo it and then like start building up more fatigue than you can recover from. You know, I sound like a certain, you know what, kind of lifter when I say that, but it is legit. You know, especially dieting, your energy in versus energy out, it can't be too drastically different, you know, or else you're gonna set yourself up for failure and burnout rather than long-term gradual success. I got a comment, and I don't know if I replied to it. I think I didn't, because the guy was kind of trolling. But I'm not one to like completely disregard criticism. Like the gist of the comment was like, you only did 3 exercises for chest? Because I did I did cable crossover presses, which I will admit are a little bit squeezing focus. It's not like a full loaded stretch. But I did those squeezing kind of crossover presses on the cable, incline Smith, decently heavy too, and then some pec deck, and then finishing back with cables. So the comment was, you only did 3 movements? And it's like, well, what would you recommend? You know, what's better? There's a gradient scale of, okay, 0 sets, it's probably no gains. I think we'd all probably agree with that. And then, well, there's no need to do infinite sets, right? So where is that number really, you know? Because is it like, are you trying to say that we need to do a press and a fly to hit the chest in all different angles? Like, I think that would be the max, You know, like if you really wanted to diversify a chest day, you would want to do 3 presses and 3 flies in whatever order, right? So a decline press, maybe something like a dip, maybe just a decline machine, a flat press, an incline press, a flat fly, a kind of decline fly, and an incline fly. Like, is that what we need? You know? And for me, the way I look at it is not hitting check boxes of like doing a movement in this way or whatever. It's like, I don't know, I guess it's just open for discussion, you know? Because I know what it feels like to have a good chest day. I know what a good lift feels like for me. And sometimes all that requires is like even just one good flat incline-ish press. You know, like I've had lifts pretty recently where all I do is like 5 sets of incline dumbbell, you know, pretty heavy, hard sets, real failure, throw the dumbbells down, and then finish with like 2 or 3 sets of flies, and that's it. And that's just a 2-set workout. And I feel pretty good about it. Like I leave and I'm looking at myself in the, you know, in the mirror posing, I'm like, you know? So the way I think about it is more so on days where a simpler workout works. Like if I jump on the incline Smith and it's just like clicks, it's perfect for today, then I just want to spam incline Smith for as many good sets as I can, and then move on to, you know, whatever else is a fly that I think will feel good to finish. And so if I do a few sets incline Smith and then I move on to let's say I think the pec deck is like going to be a perfect finisher, and I do 4 good sets of the pec deck, well then I'm fine with that. And that's only a 2-set workout. So the one little kind of asterisk next to that approach is I don't want to do the same movement combination every time. Like I wouldn't want to do incline Smith only for the rest of time, because I mean incline Smith felt good 4 days ago when I did chest last, but today it might just not click and I might not really like it, and maybe I want to do like a cable press or one of the plate loaded machine presses, or you know, something along those lines. So I don't think it's so necessary to make your workouts so diverse on an individual lifting kind of level, and I think it's a little better to try to leverage whatever machine combinations you think will really do the trick. And honestly, probably, you know, using that approach, 4 movements is probably around close to the most that I might do. Maybe 5 on like kind of a wild day. But if I'm doing 2 sets of movement, 4 movements, that's 8 sets. Usually by set 8, that's about good for me for chest. But let's say I had one movement where I didn't really like it. You know, I still did a working set, but I said, I don't think I want to do one more. Let's move on to something else. Right. So I think my upper limit in a lift, at least, you know, looking back on what I have done, probably 5-ish, probably around 5 different movements. And any more than that, I think there's just, you're not getting anything extra from doing more. You know, I mean, that's kind of a common thought process. More is more, but you know, not exactly, right? Not every time. So I guess we'll see. And depending on how I feel in the warm-up, you know, kind of doing some presses, triceps, rotator cuff, everything like that to get this whole pressing system in order, that'll kind of give me a clue into, okay, what do I think is going to be good? Because if I'm warming up, you know, just 30 pounds on the cable, kind of just moving it around all sorts of ways, and I can tell, ooh, something's a little, you know, something's just a little something, then maybe I shouldn't try to do crazy heavy incline Smith or crazy heavy dumbbell bench. You know, maybe I'll start with a lighter squeezing movement first to kind of prime myself, you know. But I will make it a little bit of a challenge today, or not today specifically, but just in general, to try to change it up a little bit more. Because when I'm dieting, the stakes of the workouts are a little bit lower, I feel. I'm still treating it like I want to get after it, of course, but I'm just trying to maintain the muscle I've already built. So I almost take my dieting phases to be a little bit more experimental, in the sense that you know, if I don't have a completely perfect wild lift, well, it's just a bust. And it never is, but it's when I'm bulking up and I'm eating a lot of food, I'm really trying to make sure that the workout is just, you know, tip top, my version of performance. But, you know, when I'm dieting, as long as I get a good pump and I get after it, I'm pretty much cool. You know, I definitely need to throw in some decently heavy sets just so I don't lose strength, and I can keep lifting similar numbers, not just for their own sake, but kind of just for the benefit of, you know, maintaining some of that, I mean, I guess I'd probably just say contractile tissue, right? You know, if you start just completely backing off and not hitting any hard lifts at all, you're definitely setting yourself up to be a little bit more, you know, potentially atrophied. I mean, I am feeling quite good right now. I got a whole bunch of tuna, chicken, and ground beef, all in their most prepped states. The tuna and the chicken being canned, which that gets a lot of hate for the chicken specifically. Gets hated on for having higher sodium levels. Right? Like if you were to just get a chicken breast straight out of the you know, the meat section, no additional sodium, right? And you know, sodium gets hated on. If you drink a ton of water, it balances out. You know, like if I drink 3 gallons of water with, you know, a normal amount of like electrolytes, like whatever the basic recommended amount would be. You know, if I drank 3 gallons of water, or let's say I was extra crazy, I mean, if I was really trying, I could probably drink 6 gallons of water in a day. There'd be no point, but I could do it. So guess how much sodium or, you know, electrolytes I'd end up, you know, getting through my system? Probably like 20 times the recommended daily amount for like a regular dude. Which even that is kind of wild, because I mean, when you look at a lot of anything bodybuilding related or diet specific, you know, it always just leeches, or not leeches, but it returns back to the common statement of, you know, something along the lines of, oh, well, you know, you're only supposed to have this much a day. Really? FDA recommends 50 grams of protein a day. And guess what? That's where we differ, right? Eggs, whole eggs, straight out of an organic, wild, roaming kind of coop. Not recommended. Diets. So I'm not saying there's no point to those recommendations, but some of them feel like they're a little behind the curve, if you kind of catch what I'm saying. I'm not saying I know better than whatever, but all I'm getting at is, if you're eating a food with a ton of sodium, like a canned chicken, if you drink a healthy amount of water, like you have a liter of water with that, you're fine, right? The problem with sodium when it comes to, you know, when guys talk about holding water or getting bloated, it's only when you have a massive change in your sodium intake, you know? Like if I were to basically have low sodium, like make sure I only eat whatever amount, I don't know how much, like 500 milligrams in a day or something, and then all of a sudden one day, or if you take a regular dude and then all of a sudden you give him a ton of crazy salty food the next day, and you don't, you know, increase his water intake accordingly, well then yeah, the guy's probably going to feel kind of weird, just because now he's got a ton of just, you know, weird, you know, kind of sodium imbalance in his system. But if you're drinking a ton of water too and making sure you're well hydrated, the sodium's good, right? Having extra electrolytes is good. For me, right now, the point of coming into the gym isn't like, okay, I need to eat a ton of food and meals first, so I'm full of carbs and full of energy. No, that's not the point right now, because I'm dieting. So what I really want to make sure is that I'm well hydrated. You know, I've only got a couple of the 𝒮𝓊𝓁𝓁𝓀 mixes, and they're all dirty right now. But I've got like a little, this is an old like smoothie bottle, and it's a little bigger, you know. You tell me. So we took a little while to actually make those like mold kind of custom embossed shakers. Would you guys want a 𝒮𝓊𝓁 jug? Usually I want to just rock any jug, but I don't really feel cool drinking pre out of something like this. But you know, you tell me. But getting back on track. What am I saying? Salt. salt's not the enemy. So if you drink enough fluids, what I'm trying to do is come to the gym well hydrated, so that even though I'm not full of, you know, carbs and glycogen and whatever, I've still got enough fluids and electrolytes to leverage a good pump, you know, and really still lift well and feel good. Guys who complain about just any kind of aches or soreness, or they get exertion headaches, that's just stemming from dehydration, man. Anytime I've ever asked somebody who had an exertion headache, or just had any kind of headache in the gym, and I ask them, like, did you drink, how much water did you drink today? Did you have any electrolyte packets of any kind? Oh, well, you know, I had a Monster. It's not going to cut it, but it's a very simple solution. You know, but I've got the tuna and the chicken and the ground beef. So 3 pounds of ground beef cooked, put into a salad bowl. That, honestly, is a very good method. I'm not exactly one to prep individual meals where I'm going to have like a single small serving Tupperware where I've got like 6 of them stacked on top of each other. If I'm ever kind of traveling around, that's probably a better method. But since all the food's at home anyway, and that's where I'm eating it, having the base forms of whatever those meals are going to be just there and ready, I mean, it's quick. If you've got 3 pounds of ground beef cooked in the fridge, ready for you to just scoop out your half pound at once and go, dude, very efficient. And I got a bunch of rice cakes too. I don't have to lock into the like no salt rice cakes. That's months down the line, right? So I've got a couple of the flavored versions. The white cheddar goes crazy. The apple, or the caramel apple, those ones are also pretty wild. And I mean, even just a regular salted rice cake, it's not bad. You know, it gets too much hate, I feel. And I never saw more rice cakes at once than at the 2 bodybuilding shows that I did earlier this year. Like, everybody's backstage just munching on them. It was kind of fun. But just a simple, easily digestible carb source, that's what I like to have back there as well. So right now I'm in the phase of dieting where I'm not really, I don't have to lock in per se, in the sense that I have to like really hold myself to this specific calorie number, because for me to just eat in kind of a graze and like make sure I hit my protein, that's just about, if not maintenance, maybe a little bit under, you know, because right now I'm in kind of a state of, you know, not starvation from eating so much food, and I'm kind of you know, sick of the intake. So for the next few weeks, this diet is gonna go by like a breeze. Like I'll lose however many pounds of body fat over the next month. Not a ton, maybe like 3 or 4, something like that. But it's not gonna feel like a chore, because I don't have a crazy massive appetite right now. But the longer that I diet, and the more kind of just basically time that I, you know, keep myself in line and hold off on eating things that I want to eat, or, you know, things like that, that's when it just gets gradually and progressively harder to stay consistent with. You know? So that's where the longer you're dieting, the more tricks you might have to pull out of your sleeve. You know? So right now, for me to just get a big bowl of ground beef, you know, melt 1 slice of American cheese onto it, not necessarily for the nutritional benefit. You know, it's got 3 grams of fat, 2 grams of protein, 4 grams of carbs, something along those lines. It's just because I like it. And that amount of carbs, fats, and proteins is very manageable. Like it's 50 calories. I can handle an extra 50 calories from that. But that's working fine. For me to have eaten that like 3 hours ago, I'm feeling good. You know. But later on, it's going to get to the point where I'm really kind of fiending for eating something, and that's where I'm going to pull out the stops. I'm talking busting out the 0-carb Greek yogurt mixed with fat-free powdered peanut butter with a little bit of sugar-free maple syrup plus some frozen berries, like things like that, sort of as a treat. Like there's a lot of little things you can add like that, and I think I should this diet, I'm going to make a point about actually kind of, you know, putting together, I guess you could say, the Sulek cookbook of dieting tricks. You know, I don't have like a ton, but I do have a few staples that I do always kind of, you know, revert back to, because for me they work. So it's not like it's a, you know, end all be all, like this is an awesome trick for everybody, but for me at least I like them, and they help keep me in line, making sure that I stay under my calorie limits. But that'll be for later on. So until then, I'll just make sure I keep hitting my protein and then eat accordingly. And not only eat accordingly, but drink accordingly. You know, I think I'm already nearly a gallon deep for the day, so 4 liters or so. When I'm dieting, I do end up drinking a bit more. Just, I don't know, maybe it's like, because I mean, there's no calories if you're drinking a bunch of something. You know, if you're drinking a whole bunch of like diet soda or something, it's not necessarily that you're full, but it does kind of give you a little bit of that fullness sensation. Plus, it's kind of tricking your mind because you're drinking something sweet, so you're kind of getting that, you know, scratch of your itch of your sweet tooth, but at no caloric detriment. So if diet soda doesn't mess with your stomach or anything, which I have never experienced, like I've slammed more than what people would feel is a normal amount of diet soda in a day, or like the Crystal Light or things along those lines. I've never felt a problem, you know, so that's that might be an individual case by case sort of deal. But for me, it definitely works, right? Like to the point where if you look back and you look at yourself fully pumped up and bulked in an off season, that's very different. That's extremely different than an unpumped, slightly flatter look right in the beginning of a dieting phase. You know, so it's not as though there's no benefit to like a real like veiny, pumped up pre-workout nitric oxide, blood flow, whatever, awesome lighting spot in the gym shot as you know, kind of a measure of your progress. But it's not necessarily the most repeatable or accurate, right? Like there's a reason why when guys do their like weekly check-in photos with like if you have a bodybuilding coach or even just a regular like dieting coach, like not even a bodybuilder, they just make sure that their phone's in the exact same spot, like in their bathroom or something on a tripod or up against the sink, and the light is exactly the same every time. And it's not like crazy freaky like flattering, it's just regular. They're standing facing this way, face the left, face the back, full-on mug shots, because that is what gives a real basic look of like, okay, how am I looking today? Not giving myself any edge or any just like, you know, benefit externally, because that kind of throws off like just the actual accuracy of what you're looking at. So as much value as there is, I feel, in like a post-workout pump check, freak factor to the max, I think doing one in the morning post cardio, just kind of a check-in of how you're looking unpumped, because that's you. Right? That's you on a more real level. As much as I think we'd all like to be our pumped version of ourselves, I think there's a good value in the fact that you can only see yourself pumped up temporarily, because it's kind of this glimpse into what you'll look like later on with whatever muscle you've got pumped up a little bit bigger. You know, so if I've got a wild chest pump, I get to say, ooh, so that's what my chest would look like that big. And then once it kind of deflates back to a normal size, I'm like, all right, I got a glimpse of my future self, and I want to bring it to reality. There's always this kind of gray middle ground area, what I'd probably refer to as the sweet spot, that I want to aim for when it comes to these workouts. You know, I obviously want them to be intense, so I want these, you know, most of the sets to be kind of pushing failure. And if your sets are, you know, more intense, just like on a slider, then you're going to do less sets, you know, and kind of still reach that same end state feeling of like, okay, that was a good lift, I'm pumped, I think it's time to go, right? So assuming that that's kind of a feeling we're aiming for, then if the sets that you do are less intense, maybe less weight, maybe less reps, maybe whatever, you know, you leave a few reps in reserve, well then the logic would be, okay, that set was a little bit less intense, you can do a few more of those in the spirit of reaching that same end goal, right? So it's like, what's a better workout? A dude who did a crazy set of squats, a crazy set of leg press, and then a few sets of extensions? You know, so the volume's down here, but the intensity's way up here. Or the guy who did like 3 sets of a little more chill squats, like still hard, like not like nothing, but a little more chill, a little lighter weight, a little higher reps, So he's doing a little bit more volume, and the intensity's not so wild, but it's still up there, you know? So I'm not exactly sure what the perfect answer is, and nobody is exactly. You know, it's because we got guys going so far as to say that they're really loving the. Well, actually, you know what? I haven't seen anyone recently try to do their own kind of self-experiment with like a Mensa approach, and like try to record and document. Like, okay, I did 2 sets of curls this week. I'm going to do 2 sets of bench next week. Or, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to make light of his routines or anything. I just don't know exactly how they're written out. But I haven't seen anybody really try to push it that far and at least like stick to it for real, you know. And then you kind of have to have evidence or like some video evidence to prove that you actually did it, you know. But how many sets? I feel like 10 is pretty typical for any given body part. 10 sets, I think I see kind of thrown around a lot. But it's like, is that too much? Is that too little? You know, I used to do 25 for a single body part in a lift, and I think that was definitely too much. And just like on that slider, I was doing 25 sets, but I was kind of pyramiding them up a little bit, so the intensity for all of them was probably a little bit lower than, you know, really trying to just get myself amped for a wild set of rope extensions, you know. So it's I guess all that's to say is I'm under the impression that I kind of always want to be in an alerting state, try different stuff, see what works. And that's kind of a very important part of the analogy, is the see what works part, you know. Because I think if you if I wrote out a routine that is very different than what I do right now, like let's say I switched and I said, all right, I'm doing I've been seeing I've been seeing guys split their body up. Instead of upper lower, they're doing they're almost doing front and back. Like I'm seeing workouts where guys will do like a few sets of each body part because they're doing more frequency, so the workouts are a little shorter, but they're hitting a lot in the workouts, you know. So they're doing some presses, some extensions, some even like crunches and leg extensions and things like that, and presses all in one lift, and then splitting. Like I think if I switch to something like that, I think it would still work, you know. I think I could still really bring it and get results. So it's you know, the answer is not written out, you know. There's no stone tablet out there that has the perfect muscle building split, or has like the 10 commandments of muscle building where it's like, these are the rules, and if you break these rules, you're gonna blow your pecs off instantly. You know, it's not so strict as that, right? So I think every so often I need to kind of clarify this. When I'm talking workout tips, I think I do throw in a lot of like basically things that I really believe are pretty much semi-universal truths, right? I think if somebody trained like a total punk and really didn't push themselves at all, they're not going to make any gains. I think we'd agree with that. And I think if somebody, you know, never tried to limit their calories, then probably no matter what kind of training they end up doing, if they're eating more food than they're burning, they're not going to get leaner. If anything, they're going to put more, you know, weight, maybe muscle, but also fat on. I think we could all probably agree with that. But when it comes down to the, you know, to training, anything beyond like basic kind of frequency and styles and things like that, it's kind of up to your discretion, you know. And I think that's one thing that's nice about having so many different videos and people to watch and listen to, because there's a lot of guys training a lot of different ways. So, you know, if you're kind of curious and you want to change something up, and find a guy that you like, resonate with his training style and how he describes it, and then say, oh, shit, that makes sense, you know. But no matter what the training style is, if that situation is like set up well, then at the end of it, I think whoever just got inspired by, you know, watching so-and-so talk about their workout routine and break it down and explain it, then that guy is going to start doing a few things that he might not have been doing before, right? Working out, being curious about learning about working out. He's going to work out probably a bit more consistently and kind of just maintain these 3 things, and then you're going to make progress, you know? So it's like when somebody looks at the number 9, and I would say, that's a number 9 right there, you know, like written on the floor. And then someone across from me looks at me and he says, no, that's a number 6, right? Because for him, from his perspective, it is a 6, it's not a 9, you know? So we're making up an argument, you know what I'm saying? So as long as you're getting into the gym and you can at least get behind what you're doing, I think that you are certainly on good track. People that argue very passionately, working out doesn't work. Even if you lose the body fat, even if you lose the weight, it's just going to come back, because that's what you're naturally, you know, that's what your body naturally is. It's equilibrium at. And I understand the logic, because if you totally like lock into a serious over diet and you're working out every day super hard, you're not really like, it's too much, but you're still doing it, and then after you're like, finally done, and you just kind of chill out. I mean, I could definitely see putting the weight back on, you know. But the whole point of a gradual, not even too gradual, but just slower deficit, slower dieting phase, is just the consistency, because it's not so abrupt that you really feel like any one day is a total insane kind of grind, you know. It's like the experiment about how you put a frog into a pot of boiling water. Well, you put a frog into a pot of standard room temperature water, right? It's just sitting there, and then you gradually increase the temperature slowly. The thing doesn't even notice, and it just gets boiled, you know, because the changes, even though they're drastic, they were slow, you know. So there was no eureka moment or like, whoa, right? So that's where having a consistent routine, dieting wise, calorie wise, cardio wise, right? I got the cardio down, and got the bike. I was about to say the bike 24/7. That's not true. The bike 30 minutes a day, 7 times a week. And it's, you know, it's not anything crazy. I don't have to do a marathon of cardio. I don't have to do a full day fast, like, you know, overnight, 24-hour. It's, you know, I'm still eating a good chunk of food, but it's just barely low enough, including my energy expenditure, that I'll get gradually, slowly leaving, you know. And it's something which I've got a bit more of my own experience with, because I've dieted up and down, like 7, no, maybe not 7 times, at least 5 times. So for me, I kind of like I know the kind of tricks and things that work well for me, just from having done it so many times. And hearing someone say a tip or a little trick or a meal or whatever, it's all fun and good, but actually trying it yourself and seeing if it works, that's going to be much more valuable, right, on a lifter by lifter basis, because you'll actually learn what is actually going to work for you. We're very obsessed right now with the idea of like, okay, what is the best way to do this? What is the most perfect way? And honestly, I don't think it's the best when people say that what they say is the best. It's like, it's what works, and it has worked for them, you know. But objectively the best, I wouldn't really give that title of training to anyone. But the idea is like, okay, I don't want to work out unless it's a guarantee that what I do is going to be perfect. And I don't think it's like that, you know. You should try your own stuff. You should see what works. Who's to say that you're not the one genetic, like, freak who responds to like a kind of training that nobody's ever done? Maybe not, but just to take an argument to an extreme, like, as much as we can write out on paper, like, oh, I'm going to do this routine, and I'm going to have this progression, and I'm going to overload, and I'm going to hit a 315 bench by the time yeah, that's on paper, right? That's a plan. But in reality, your plan's gonna have some wrenches thrown into your gears, and you might have to flip around and try some new stuff or whatever. So that's why I'll probably always come back to the idea that your results will speak for themselves, right? You know, given the proper context of what your goals are and everything else that you're doing in and out the gym. You could say that you're doing the perfect routine. You know, I see it all the time. Guys who say they're gonna, you know, I'm gonna start eating, man. I'm gonna get big this summer. This winter, bro, winter bulk, I'm locked in. Demon Arc, I go to the same gyms every year. Or, well, I mean, I make my way around. I see the same people, even from like gyms I get to visit. But the gyms that I go to, I've been at them for years, and I've seen the guys who say that. And it's not everyone, of course, but usually there's a little bit of a pattern of the guys who kind of, oh, dude, I'm gonna do it, man. It's like, what's compelling someone to put out in the world like I'm gonna do it? I think it's a stronger force to kind of turn that inward and give your own kind of self-talk, like, all right, let's do this, and then let the whatever you just did or accomplished sort of speak for itself. You know what I'm saying? So not as glamorous, because let's say you're aiming for like a crazy squat, a big bench. Let's say you say you're going to compete, you're going to do a whole, you know, bodybuilding show, natural, unnatural, either one, whatever. It's like, you know, saying you're going to do it doesn't really give you any props, right? I mean, if you actually make it happen, then that's cool. But for me, I've always kind of liked the idea of, you know, not necessarily making any claims. And maybe that's just my own like subconscious defense mechanism, where it's like, if you never say what you're planning on doing, then let's say if you didn't make it happen, you know, it's not going to splash back in your face, right? Because let's say some dude is like, I'm going to compete next year, I'm going to be diced, I'm going to do this show, and hey, what happened to that show you said you were going to do? And then excuse city, you know. But for the guys who, you know, like that, just maybe kind of added pressure of like, dude, I'm going to show you. And then they do, and they do show whoever that guy was they were talking to. I'm sure that's a good feeling. So, you know, there's no, even with your own freaking mental motivation and like goal setting, it's a person-to-person thing, you know. So if you, I guess what I'm maybe getting at, training, or even just on more of a personal note, it's like the more you can know yourself, the more you can kind of not give yourself the benefit of the doubt, but sort of give yourself setups and routines and things that you know resonate well, right? But I think no more rambling. I would just get in there and start up arms. Not certain how I want this lift to look. I think I'll make that decision once I start warming up. Because let's say my triceps still feel tender from chest, or from, you know, the last arm day even. Right? When I'm dieting down, I'll have muscle soreness extend a couple extra days if I really had an awesome lift, but obviously I'm not eating enough food to facilitate it. So it's, you know, I could say I'm going to do crazy heavy triceps, but if I get in there and they feel a little more tender, maybe I'm going to say lighter, lower volume. Maybe I'd even say I'll skip triceps today and save them for next week because I hit them hard enough the last time and kind of overdid it. Right. But we'll just have to see. But, you know, it's no more rambling. Let's go get started. All right, let's assume you've been working out for a while, right? I know I have. And I mean, just try to remember what your goals were as a freaking beginner, or you know, if you started working out long ago enough, kind of even like a chitlin. I just Mark just sent me a video from 2018, like almost a year ago, a few days, and honestly, right around now, this is just about when I started working out. So I'm at like the 7-year mark, maybe a little more like 7.5, but just about the 7.5-year mark. And the video is me doing 185 on flat. I don't know how many reps I could get. I don't think it was 10. They look pretty clean though. But I mean, back then, dude, I was freaking over the world even to bench 200 the first time. Or the first time I hit 250. I think the first time I ever benched 300 was in the basement gym. But it wasn't a flashy 300 because it was, the plates that I had was like a 300-pound weight set. So it's not like, you know, plates. It's a 45, a 35, a 25, a 10, a 5, and a 2.5. And it all added up nicely. It might have been 2 5s, I don't remember. But it all added up very nicely to 300. And that was nuts. You know, because I mean, especially in the beginning, like the trend starts to trail off. But early on, lifting wise, you know, year 1, year 2, year 3, it's pretty comparable to look at your strength gains and your size gains. They do start to diverge, where the bigger you get, sometimes it doesn't exactly translate to any more strength. I think if we're talking about like a 6-foot dude, peak functional strength size, it's probably somebody like a John Hack. I don't know what weight class that he's lifting in, but that's got to be probably around like the optimal ratio of strength and size. Because if you're lighter, obviously you're not going to be as strong as a guy 50 pounds heavier than you. But if you get heavier, you know, if you're 30% heavier, it might not mean you're lifting 30% more weights, right? But in the pursuit bodybuilding wise, not as important. But in the beginning, I mean, mass moves mass, you know. So a good challenge to, a good kind of thought process to challenge your lifts, it's to look at it as though, you know, trying to do weight you've never done before for reps that you've never done before. And I'm not talking like, you know, do freaking, you know, pull downs that are so heavy you're like wrenching it and you have like that weird like shouldery look of pulling at the bottom. You know, I'm just saying like, okay, you know, I did single leg extensions, 110 for 30, or not 30, but like 110 for 20, real like burning, squeezing. Right, let's try to do 115 or like 120, you know, like little things like that in the spirit of progressive overload, you know. And it's not something that I've ever really tried to track on paper. Of course, I have all sorts of like, I mean, now I've got thousands of hours of like video documentation of my training, at least for the last, I think, nearly 3 years. So that's kind of my version of my log. But I was never one to like write my lifts down on a week by week, like powerlifting program kind of style. It's and the way I look at it is, I don't think you actually have to do that. If you like it, then do it. But I don't think it's a necessity, because I'm more so trying to put myself in a position where I'm gonna come to the gym with the same like goal or kind of mindset frame, and then have that be set up to progress long term. You know, so if I come into the gym and I'm telling myself, okay, I want to do a weight that is basically up there as much as I can handle for whatever rep range I'm aiming for. Maybe it's a heavy set of squats, so that rep range will be down close to like 8 or 10. Maybe it's a little bit of a higher rep set of, you know, incline press, and then it might be like 15, you know. So it's just kind of a weird way to reference sets, because somebody could say they did 3 sets of 10, but does that really tell you everything about the set? The guy might have done those 3 sets of 10, but he could have done 3 sets of 20. So the sets were like half as many reps as he could have handled. So the way I look at it, when I describe a workout, when I'm saying like, you know, I did incline Smith 3 sets, you know, 10 reps, or if I'm describing how my workout was, what I mean by that is those 10 reps were basically right there at failure. Heavy presses usually is legit failure. And then some lighter squeezing movements, it's more so just kind of aiming for like a good burning fatigue sensation. Like, and the more you do it, the more you'll kind of know the difference, if you kind of get what I'm saying, right? But it's, if I'm coming into the gym with the mindset of, all right, I'm gonna do this set of 10 at a weight that I know is really gonna make that last one a grinder, and I do every set like that, you know, be it a heavy set of curls like in the beginning of today's lift, or overhead extensions where it's a bit more just like torturous and just can't even freaking move, like whatever rep number that is that I'm aiming for, or whatever like, you know, bracket of reps I'm aiming for, like I want to really bring it. And if I know that I did that and like I wasn't lying to myself, then as long as I give myself ample recovery time, I'm gonna come back a stronger guy, right? You could just say a more powerful lifter, you know. So if now your baseline strength, let's exaggerate it just for, you know, for this reference, but let's say you came back and from that real wild chest day you just did, you yourself as a whole are now 10% stronger. If you come into the gym with the same mentality of, okay, I'm gonna do these sets for these many reps and I really want to make it hard,
then as long as you guess the weight right, that's gonna put you at, whatever percent higher weight for the workout. So it's just this like kind of scaling effect where every lift should be just a little extra than the last one. Now it's a little bit of a different story because I'm dieting, so I'm not really growing. The goal now is simply maintaining my size and strength, but it's the same thing. I'm keeping my foot on the gas, making sure these lifts are at an intensity I'm comfortable with and know is gonna keep me big and strong, so that as I get leaner and cut down food, I'm gonna still be beefy underneath. And as all this body fat starts to come off, those cuts and everything will gradually be revealed, right? But the main theme is keep your foot on the gas. Don't catch yourself slacking. And if you do, dude, figure something out quick. Like there are, I can understand that there's phases. I can understand that, maybe a few weeks you got really motivated, something about just a video or a movie you watched, or like you ran into somebody you hadn't seen before for a while. I don't know, a million different reasons. And for that month, you're like just a little extra amped. And then you might feel like you're kind of in a dog days phase. It's like, I'm still working out, but it's just not the same. Like maybe you get this feeling of kind of like maybe a little bit of aimlessness. I felt a little bit of that the first time ever, pretty much. And this was after I was done competing earlier this year. So, February comes around, I'm like, all right, muscle contest, Vegas. All right, sweet, nice. Because I was real, like, blinders on for those few months beforehand, like, basically more than ever. So it was kind of like hyper fixated on that goal of the competition season. It's like, all right, we made it. It's time for the Arnold Amateur. All right. And then once it was over and I got back to the gym and everything, it took me like a week. It took me, I think, a week and a half to kind of get myself back into like, all right, what's next? Like I was just working so hard for this thing. I'm like, and that, okay, what? So it took a couple days for me to kind of recenter myself and remember. It's like, all right, no, yeah, we got an off season right now. All right, let's redirect. It was a little trickier for me to kind of redirect my course because of how like focused. Like I talk a lot about how if you did like how your phone has watch time and you can see how much time you spent on every app. Like if you did that on my brain the few months before those bodybuilding competitions this year. Dude, lifting, dieting, cardio, that was up there way more than freaking normal. And it was so it just took a second to get out of that little slump I had, but if you're ever in that kind of thing, at least what helped me was just remembering like, okay, like what's next, and not what's next in this like moment, like not what's next week, like what's next this year, like what are my overarching goals that I want to achieve. And I think it's good to have ones that are a little bit broader. Not like, obviously you need like list-based goals where it's like, okay, today I got to do this, 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 and this, whatever. But I think there's a different sort of motivation when it comes to having more grandiose, like not even specific goals, just a little bit more broad, because the point isn't instantly accomplishing them. I mean, if your thing is like you want to get pretty lean, like you want abs, you want forearm veins, and you're a 350 pounder, like you've got to be obsessed with the idea of you in the future. So what I kind of boil that down to in like, okay, what kind of headspace do you want to be in to really get yourself amped on a day-by-day basis for something that you won't see the reward from for years, maybe sometimes months, but sometimes years into the future. Then what gets me going is knowing that I'm on track, right? Knowing, all right, I'm eating my food, I'm hitting these lifts very well, I'm getting my sleep, I'm well hydrated, I got my jog, all right, nice. I'm on track. I'm in the green. I've got an upward trajectory. So, no matter what else might happen, or maybe I fell short of whatever the goal was, or just, if I know that every day I'm making even just inches of progress, relatively, then that's cool with me. because then you're not in this like catching up kind of thought process. It's not like, okay, I want to get to the same level as this guy. Because if you kind of get this like internal motivation, like, all right, I want to be a little better at this, and I want to keep doing everything it takes on the regular, and you're kind of a little bit more self-centered with your focus rather than trying to compare yourself to whoever else, then honestly, I feel like, progress, or, we'd say gains, it just kind of happens, because if you're the guy who likes working out and doing his cardio and like just reaping the benefits from really locking into working out in all facets, well, guess what? You don't even have to think about like, okay, I need to get bigger. I need to get a bigger chest. I need a bigger bench. I need to get a little bit leaner on this diet. Like, you don't even have to think that, because you know that what you're doing is working. And some of that's just from, experience. So for me, I've dieted down and gotten pretty lean more than a handful of times. I've gotten bulked up the same amount. So I've got at least my own repertoire of like times and tricks and like kind of overcoming whatever, shutting the pantry door, knowing I could like totally destroy 3 packs of ramen there, like just whatever treat I wanted or something, or eating a bigger bowl of food that I wasn't like super excited to eat, because I knew that long term I was going to be glad I did it, because it's going to benefit me in the future. Oh, nice. It was hard for me to not stop at Sheetz and get a Ben & Jerry's, because I know they're in there. But I did it. Now I proved to myself that I could do it. Nice. So it's just a situation of delayed gratification, which is definitely a tricky one. That's not and the argument is it's a little difficult. Do this thing that is hard, that you don't really like on a instinctual level. You probably don't want to do it. Like that's the whole point of why dieting is hard, because your body wants to eat. Like you as a living thing want to do something, and then consciously you're trying to hold back that urge. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and I'm not trying to say it is. But if you can overcome it, right? If you can overcome that that instinct to just, not only is it going to prove that you've got the kind of just mental willpower to handle it, but even doing it strengthens that willpower in the first place. Every diet and bulk that I've ever done was easier than the last one, because I got more practice doing it before. And I mean, I've said this definitely on numerous occasions. By proving you can do something which you've never done is now just basically broadening your range of capabilities. So to do it again, you've already done it. It's nothing, Now something that's a little hard and like a little bit barely out of reach, now that's even further away. So the closer you get to whatever you might really be capable of, it's just this kind of climbing effect, So it's something that's a little tricky to see early on, because I'm talking like, if I took original Sam as a lifter, 165, 160, I think about 165 or so. If I took him and I showed him me only 2 years later, I'd be freaking shocked. Not to mention, honestly, if I showed him me now, my version, I might not even, I can almost guarantee I wouldn't believe it. Like if you took a picture of me or showed a video of me lifting, maybe just blurred my face or whatever, and showed me now to beginning lifter Sam, who is this guy? Like I can almost guarantee I wouldn't recognize myself. So, be that a good thing or a bad thing, who's to say? But yeah, plan now, go eat something, shower off, and probably try to chill outside a little bit. It is nice. Sunny, very clear skies, only a little cloudy, but in kind of a cool way. And it's not too hot. I gotta get a bike. So if you guys have been watching for a while, you remember the lift where I came in, and I almost definitely told you the story about when I got my bike stolen back when I was at college. Because I would leave it in front of my apartment and I wouldn't lock it up, and nothing happened for months. So I'm, in my mind, I'm like, I guess we're good. And then the day before finals, you know, I go down, I'm like, all right, I got 5 minutes to get to class. It's a 5-minute bike ride. I'm good. And they pulled off the perfect heist because they took it right during finals, so everybody's leaving. That's a freaking, they crossed state lines with my bike. I can guarantee it. But either way, I think that no, that's fun for me. So I think I might want to do that instead of cardio, just to make use of the warmth. Because I mean, I don't mind the bike at all. Like, do not get me wrong, I do not mind the seated bike, but it's a little more fun riding around through town and just neighborhoods, and like, for me, it's kind of nostalgic. I'm getting a little nostalgia factor motivating me to do my cardio. Because I was in when I was in early high school, maybe barely a little middle school, I don't remember, but that was like when Pokemon Go was fresh. Yeah, I had the bike mount. I had the bike phone mount where you didn't actually have to hold it, just zipping around. It was fun. I don't think I'm gonna do that, but I think I'll put on some 𝒮𝓊𝓁𝓁 Misfit podcasts, which if you know,